I stood silently as they lowered my grandfather's casket into the ground. The rain had stopped just in time for the funeral, but the air was still heavy with moisture, matching the weight in my chest. My name is Maya Carter, and today I buried the last person who truly loved me. I glanced across the grave and saw my mother, Patricia, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. Next to her stood her husband of 8 years, Robert, and his 2 college-age children, Amber and Tyler. They were all dressed in black, looking appropriately somber, but I knew better. None of them had visited Grandpa James even once during his 3-month hospital stay. I had been the one sitting by his bedside, holding his hand as cancer slowly took him away from me. "Maya," my mother called out after the ceremony ended. "Thank you for arranging everything. James would have appreciated it." Before I could respond, a man in a charcoal suit approached us. "Ms. Carter, I'm Howard Benson, your grandfather's attorney. I need to speak with you about the reading of his will." My mother perked up at the mention of the will. "When will this take place?" she asked with poorly disguised interest. "Now, if that's convenient," Howard replied, looking at me for confirmation. "That's fine," I answered. 20 minutes later, we all gathered in my grandfather's spacious living room. "Let's proceed," Howard said. Sensing the tension, he sat down at the dining table and removed several documents from his briefcase. "I'll begin with the formal reading of the last will and testament of James Edward Carter," he announced. As Howard read through the legal preamble, I watched my mother's face. She was leaning forward slightly, her eyes focused on the papers in Howard's hands. Amber, my stepsister, kept glancing around the room, mentally cataloging items as if she was already deciding what she wanted. "To my beloved granddaughter, Maya Elizabeth Carter, I leave my entire estate," Howard continued, "including my primary residence at 1458 Cedar Avenue, my vacation home at Lake Clearwater, and all financial assets totaling approximately $800,000. The room went silent. I wasn't surprised. Grandpa had always made it clear that I would inherit everything, but the looks on the others' faces were priceless. Amber's mouth literally fell open, and my mother's smile froze in place. "Additionally," Howard continued, "to Patricia Carter, I leave my silver kitchen set, which she always admired." My mother straightened up. "What, the silver set, that's all?" Howard nodded. "That's correct." "Old fool," she muttered under her breath. I felt a surge of anger. "That set is worth several $1,000s, I said coldly, "and he didn't owe you anything." Howard quickly wrapped up the reading and explained to me the process for transferring the properties and assets. Throughout his explanation, Amber kept glaring at me while Tyler stared at his phone, trying to look bored but clearly disappointed. After Howard left, my mother turned to me. "Maya, you need to consider sharing some of this inheritance with us. Your father would have wanted his family taken care of." "My father has been dead for 12 years, I replied evenly. "And Grandpa James was my family, the only real family I've had since Dad died." "That's not fair," Amber suddenly interjected. "You don't deserve all this. What makes you so special? You're not even that smart or pretty or talented. You never accomplished anything." I looked at my mother, waiting for her to defend me. She said nothing. Her silence said everything I needed to know. "Well, Amber," I said calmly, "since you're so smart, beautiful, and talented, I'm sure you'll have no problem making your own fortune. Now, I'd like you all to leave my house." They shuffled out, grumbling and shooting me dirty looks. As soon as they were gone, I locked the door and leaned against it, finally allowing the tears to come. After a few minutes, I wiped my eyes and went to Grandpa's office. I needed to sort through his papers and start figuring out my new reality. As I sat at his desk, memories flooded back. After Dad died when I was 13, everything changed. Mom met Robert a year later, and suddenly she was focused on building her new family. When they married and Robert moved in with his kids, I became an afterthought in my own home. Amber and Tyler were spoiled brats from the start. Amber, who was 2 years younger than me, would steal my things and then deny it. She'd ruin my homework and blame it on their dog. Tyler would make crude comments when no adults were around. And Mom, she was too busy trying to be the perfect wife and stepmother to notice what was happening to her own daughter. Grandpa James became my refuge. I'd stay at his house whenever I could. Weekends, school breaks, sometimes even weeknights. If I had a lot of homework, no one at home seemed to care, or even notice my absence. When I graduated high school, Grandpa paid for me to attend college in another state. Those 4 years away were the happiest of my life. After college, I moved back to my hometown but rented my own place. I'd visit Grandpa several times a week, but I only saw Mom a handful of times, usually by accident at the grocery store or gas station. She even forgot my birthday last year. Now Grandpa was gone, and I was alone. But at least I had a home, his home, and enough financial security to figure out what I wanted to do next. As I sorted through his papers, I made a silent promise to honor his memory by making the most of the gift he'd given me. Several weeks passed after the funeral. I moved out of my rented apartment and into Grandpa's house. One Saturday morning, I was sorting through some of Grandpa's old books when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I approached the door cautiously and checked through the peephole. My mother stood on the porch with Amber beside her. Both wore bright smiles that didn't reach their eyes. I opened the door reluctantly. "Mom, Amber, what are you doing here?" "Maya, sweetie." My mother stepped forward and hugged me before I could react. "I've come to pick up the silver service James left me. I figured it was a good chance for us to catch up." "Right," I said, stepping aside to let them in. "It's in the kitchen, cabinet. Same place it's always been." Mom headed straight for the kitchen, while Amber lingered in the living room, her eyes scanning every corner like she was taking inventory. "God, this place is so depressing," she said, running a finger along the bookshelf. "It looks like a museum for old people. If this was my house, I'd get it completely. New furniture, new paint, maybe knock down a few walls to open it up." "Well, it's not your house," I replied calmly, "and I happen to like it this way." Amber rolled her eyes. "Whatever. You always did. Have weird taste." I bit my tongue, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of seeing me upset. Instead, I walked toward the kitchen to check on Mom. She was carefully wrapping each piece of the silver service in newspaper. After she finished packing the silver, we stood awkwardly in the entryway. I expected them to leave, but Mom surprised me. "Maya, I've been thinking, we should try to rebuild our relationship. You don't have any close family left now that James is gone." I almost laughed at her sudden interest in my well-being. "That's true," I said non-committally. "Why don't you come over for dinner next Saturday? I'll make all your favorites, chicken parmesan, garlic mashed potatoes, and that chocolate cake you loved as a kid." I was about to refuse when something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, or perhaps some small part of me still hoped for the mother I'd lost years ago. "Okay," I said finally. "What time?" Mom's smile widened. 6 o'clock. Robert and Tyler will be there too. It'll be a proper family dinner." After they left, I sat on the porch swing, trying to figure out what had just happened. Mom hadn't shown interest in my life for years, and now suddenly she wanted family dinners. The timing was suspicious, coming right after I'd inherited a small fortune. But maybe, just maybe, losing Grandpa had made her realize the importance of family. The week passed quickly, and before I knew it, Saturday arrived. I dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, not wanting to look like I was trying too hard. At 6 sharp, I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. The house looked smaller than I remembered. I hesitated before ringing the doorbell, a flood of memories washing over me. This was where I'd grown up, where I'd played with Dad, where I'd felt safe and loved until I didn't anymore. Robert answered the door. "Maya," he said with a nod, his usual greeting. He'd never bothered with hugs or even handshakes. Inside, Mom bustled around the dining room, setting the table with the silver service she'd just acquired from Grandpa's house. Tyler sat on the couch, playing a video game, barely acknowledging my presence. "Maya," Mom called. "You're right on time. Dinner's almost ready. Can I help with anything?" I offered. "No need. I've got it all under control. Make yourself at home." Make yourself at home. The irony wasn't lost on me. This had been my home once, but now I felt like a stranger here. I decided to wander around, while Mom finished in the kitchen. The living room was mostly the same, though the family photos now featured more of Robert's kids than me. I climbed the stairs to the second floor, running my hand along the banister where Dad had once measured my height with pencil marks. Looking for something, Amber's voice came from behind me. "Just taking a walk down memory lane," I replied. She followed me up the stairs. "I turned your old bedroom into my dressing room," she said with a laugh. "You won't need it anymore anyway, right?" I said nothing, just kept walking until I reached my old room. The door was open, and sure enough, it had been transformed. My pale blue walls were now pink. Where my bed had once stood, there were now clothing racks filled with designer outfits. My desk had been replaced by a vanity table covered in makeup. I headed back downstairs, intending to offer help in the kitchen despite Mom's refusal. As I approached, I heard the clinking of glasses and peered around the corner. Mom was standing at the counter with her back to me, pouring something from a small bottle into a mug. She quickly tucked the bottle into her pocket when she heard the floor creak beneath my feet. "Maya," she said, spinning around. "I was just making your tea. You still like it with honey, right?" "Right," I said, my mind racing. What had she put in that mug? I retreated to the dining room where everyone was gathering. Mom appeared a moment later, carrying a tray with drinks. She handed me the mug I'd seen her tamper with. "Your favorite tea," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I forced a smile in return. "Thanks, Mom." As everyone settled in and began passing dishes, I noticed that Amber had an identical mug to mine. While Mom was distracted serving Robert, I casually switched our mugs. "Everything looks delicious," I said, taking a small sip from my new mug. I watched Mom watching me, her eyes darting to the mug every few seconds. "So, Maya," Robert said, breaking the silence, "what are your plans for that big house? Seems like a lot of space for one person." "I'm not sure yet," I replied. "For now, I'm just getting used to living there." The conversation continued, but I was only half listening. I was too busy watching Mom's growing nervousness. I decided to stay longer than planned. I needed to know what was happening, what Mom had tried to do to me. Dinner dragged on uncomfortably. Mom hinted I should go, but I pretended that I didn't understand her words. An hour after we'd finished eating, Amber suddenly stopped mid-sentence while she was telling a story about her college professor. Her face turned pale, and she swayed in her chair. "I don't feel so good," she mumbled, pressing her hand to her forehead. "Amber," Robert stood up quickly. "What's wrong?" Before she could answer, Amber slumped forward, her head hitting the table with a thud. She'd fainted. Everyone jumped up in panic. Robert rushed to his daughter's side while Tyler stood frozen, staring at his sister with wide eyes. "What's happening?" "Amber?" Mom shrieked, shaking Amber's shoulder. "Wake up!" Robert checked her pulse. "Patricia, call an ambulance." Mom fumbled for her phone with shaking hands. As she dialed, I cleared my throat. "I think I should mention something," I said calmly. "I accidentally switched mugs with Amber earlier. I noticed they were identical, and I wasn't paying attention." "Which was which? Maybe she drank something that didn't agree with her?" Mom's eyes darted to the empty mug in front of Amber, then back to me. "No, that's not." "Robert, call 911 now. Tell them to hurry." Her panicked reaction confirmed my suspicions. I watched as she paced back and forth, muttering to herself. Robert was on the phone, describing Amber's symptoms to the dispatcher. "Mom," I said quietly, "what did you put in my tea?" She whirled on me. "Nothing. Don't be ridiculous." "Then why are you so scared? What's happening to Amber?" "Shut up," she screamed, her composure completely gone. "This is your fault. You switched the drinks." I stepped away and pulled out my own phone, dialing the police. "Hello? I'd like to report an attempted poisoning," I said clearly. "I believe my mother tried to drug me, but my stepsister got the drink instead." Within minutes, paramedics rushed into the house. As they worked on Amber, I quietly explained what I had seen. Mom adding something to my tea, and my suspicion that she had tried to drug me. The paramedics stabilized Amber and loaded her onto a stretcher. "Her blood pressure is dangerously low," one of them told Robert. "We need to get her to the hospital immediately." As they wheeled Amber out, police cars pulled up to the house. 2 officers came inside and I repeated my story. The senior officer, a woman with kind eyes and a firm voice, asked Mom what she had put in the drink. Mom broke down in tears. It was clonidine. "I took it from Mrs. Winters when I was cleaning her house last week. She uses it for high blood pressure. I knew it would make Maya's pressure drop, make her dizzy and disoriented while driving. She could have crashed her car, and then she'd need us to help her recover. She'd have to share some of that money with us." The room fell silent. Even Robert was staring at her in shock. "Patricia Carter," the officer said, "I'm placing you under arrest for attempted murder." "Murder?" Mom gasped. "No. I didn't want to kill her, just hurt her a little." Drugging someone without their knowledge, especially with a medication that could cause a car accident, shows intent to cause serious harm or death, the officer explained as she handcuffed Mom. As they led Mom out to the police car, she turned to look at me one last time. "Maya, please, tell them I didn't mean it. I'm your mother." I said nothing, watching as they put her in the back of the patrol car. Robert came to stand beside me, his face ashen. "I had no idea," he said quietly. "I swear, Maya, I knew nothing about this." I believed him. Robert had many faults, but he wasn't violent or vindictive, just selfish and indifferent. "You should go to the hospital," I told him. "Amber needs you." He nodded, grabbing his keys and Tyler's arm. "Are you going to be okay?" "I'll be fine," I said. "I need to give my statement to the police, and then I'm going home." After they left, I sat down with the remaining officer and told him everything: the inheritance, Mom's sudden interest in reconnecting, what I'd seen in the kitchen, and the switched mugs. He took careful notes, asking clarifying questions about Mom's behavior and statements. "We'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to make a formal statement," he said, "and you'll likely be called to testify if this goes to trial." I nodded, suddenly exhausted. "I understand." Later, as I drove back to Grandpa's house, my house now, reality crashed over me. My own mother had tried to hurt me, possibly kill me, for money. The mother who had once bandaged my scraped knees and read me bedtime stories had become someone capable of calculating harm against her own child. I parked in the driveway but couldn't bring myself to go inside yet. Instead, I sat in the car, tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness, but of anger and betrayal. How had things gone so wrong? When had Mom changed so much? Eventually, I wiped my tears and went inside. The house was quiet and still, filled with Grandpa's things, with memories of the man who had loved me unconditionally. I ran my hand along the banister, feeling its smooth wood beneath my fingers. "I miss you, Grandpa," I whispered to the empty house. "What do I do now?" The next few weeks passed in a blur of police stations, lawyers' offices, and courthouse visits. Mom was charged with attempted murder. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Her confession at the scene, the clonidine found in her pocket, and the hospital's confirmation that Amber had indeed been drugged with the medication. I sat through the preliminary hearing, watching Mom in her orange jumpsuit, her face pale and drawn. She kept trying to catch my eye, but I refused to look at her directly. Robert and Tyler were there too, sitting on the opposite side of the courtroom. Amber was still recovering at home. Mom's public defender tried to argue that she never intended to kill me, just cause a minor accident, but the prosecutor countered that giving someone a blood pressure medication that could cause them to lose consciousness while driving showed a reckless disregard for human life. In the end, Mom accepted a plea deal, 5 years for attempted second-degree murder, with possibility of parole after 3 years. As they led her away, she finally caught my eye and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I turned away. Outside the courthouse, Robert approached me awkwardly. "Amber's doing better," he said. "She wants to talk to you." She was horrified when she learned what her mother tried to do. We all were. None of us would have gone along with something like that. I agreed to visit Amber the next day. When I arrived at their house, it felt strange knowing Mom wouldn't be there. Amber was sitting in the living room, looking pale but alert. "Hey," she said when I walked in. "Thanks for coming." I sat across from her. "How are you feeling?" "Better. The doctors say there won't be any permanent damage." She fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. "Look, Maya, I need to apologize. Not just for my mom, that's on her, but for how I'd treated you all these years." I raised my eyebrows, not expecting this. "I was jealous," she continued. "You had this perfect relationship with your dad and then with your grandpa. Even after your dad died, you had someone who put you first. No one ever put me first, not even my mom." Her voice broke, and I took it out on you. "It wasn't perfect," I said softly. "Just real." We talked for nearly an hour, not about Mom or the inheritance, but about our childhoods, our misunderstandings, the family we might have been in different circumstances. I wouldn't call it a reconciliation exactly, but it was a start. When I left, we agreed to meet for coffee sometime. I didn't know if it would actually happen, but the possibility existed now, which was more than I'd had before. 3 months after Mom's sentencing, I received a letter from the women's correctional facility where she was being held. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. "Dear Maya," she had written in her familiar looping handwriting. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. What I did was unforgivable. I lost myself. Somewhere along the way, after your father died, I was desperate to build a new life, one without the pain of remembering him. But in trying to escape that pain, I caused so much more. I pushed you away when I should have held you closer. You were all I had left of him, and I couldn't bear to see his eyes looking back at me through yours. I'm not asking you to visit, or even to write back. I just want you to know that I regret what I did with every fiber of my being. Not just the terrible thing I tried to do to you, but all of it. The years of neglect, choosing Robert and his kids over you, forgetting what it means to be a mother. I'm so sorry, Maya. I hope someday you find happiness and peace, even if I'm not part of your life. Love, Mom." I folded the letter and put it back in its envelope, then placed it in a drawer in Grandpa's desk. I didn't cry. I didn't feel the need to respond. Maybe someday I would, but not yet. Mom needed to sit with her choices longer, and I needed time to build my life without the shadow of her betrayal hanging over me. And that's what I did. A year passed, then another. I kept Grandpa's house but redecorated parts of it, blending his antiques with some of my own style. I used some of the inheritance to go back to school for a master's degree in education, something I'd always wanted to do. I made new friends, dated occasionally, and slowly built a life that felt like mine. Amber and I did meet for coffee, and then dinner, and eventually became something like friends. Not close, but civil, and sometimes even genuinely warm with each other. Tyler went off to grad school in another state, Robert sold their house and moved to a condo downtown. We exchanged Christmas cards, but nothing more. Mom continued to write every few months. I read her letters, but never replied. She wrote about her therapy sessions, about the other women in prison, about her regrets and hopes. In her most recent letter, she mentioned she was up for parole soon. She didn't ask if I would support her release, or if she could come stay with me afterward. She seemed to understand that some bridges can't be rebuilt. Yesterday, I was cleaning out some old boxes in the attic and found a photo album I hadn't seen before. It was full of pictures of Dad and me at the beach, opening Christmas presents, riding bikes in the park. In every photo, we were laughing. On the last page was a note in Grandpa's handwriting. For Maya, never forget how much joy you brought to your father's life. He lives on in you. I sat there amid the dusty boxes, holding that album to my chest, and finally cried for everything I'd lost and found. Dad was gone, and Grandpa too. Mom was alive but lost to me in a different way. I had inherited a house and money, but more importantly, I had inherited the capacity to love deeply and the strength to survive loss. Today, as I write this, I'm sitting on the porch swing of my grandfather's house, my house now, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. A gentle breeze rustles the leaves of the old oak tree Dad planted the year I was born. It's taller than the house now, its roots deep and strong. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever forgive Mom, or if she'll ever truly understand the depth of her betrayal. But I do know that I'm okay. More than okay, actually. I'm at peace with who I am and where I came from. Dad and Grandpa gave me the greatest gift, the knowledge that I was loved unconditionally. That love sustains me still, a quiet strength that no one can take away. Not even the mother who tried to kill me for an inheritance I would have shared if only she'd asked.